Okay. Well, I sent the link to Kevin. Hopefully he'll jump on here, but I see we got Joel. So we do have a quorum here. So I'm going to go ahead. It's 5:23. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call. I guess we got David Knopke, Jason Zander, Sarah Sando, myself, Greg Worth. Still waiting for Kevin. Joel Ebert is on. James Serwo is excused, and then Lucas Wallace, and also Ann Houserath and Mark Young. Did I miss anybody? Guess not. So we'll move on to the approval. There's Kevin there. So
Hello, sorry, thank you.
oh, glad you're here. So I have the approval of the minutes. The minutes for September were sent out, 2 different meetings. But anybody have any questions or comments, corrections on the September minutes? If not, we'll have those approved as submitted. Seeing none, we'll the minutes are approved. We'll move on to regular agenda items. So city staff update. David, the floor is yours.
Sure. So we were able to get out and look at the existing school zones. It does look like we have a little work to do out there, but what we're doing is I had our quarterly meeting with the school district on Wednesday or Thursday last week, and we're going to coordinate together so that we can start working with the school district and the individual schools to work on the drop-off locations and try to find an interim fix in the meantime, and then try to find a longer-term fix that will hopefully make pickup and drop-off by parents a little safer, a little bit traffic flow a little bit better, and keep that separation between the buses and the parent drop off. So that's in the works. I don't have a full-fledged update, but that's where we are right now. The sidewalk program and the ADA ramps are still ongoing. The pedestrian crossings at Montana and Bozeman and Lindale and Ewing, they're still in process of design. Those public meetings should be coming up. We're just waiting on some feedback from MDT so that we're not presenting something as options to the public that MDT is an absolute no on. So as soon as we hear back from them, we will be scheduling those public meetings. The BNSF MRL easement, we are still working with them. We have got a updated map that they wanted more of an overall visual put together, and then we're working on some cross sections that they wanted to see, basically the relationship between the old path and the new path, or the new proposed location for the path, and their center line of their tracks. So those are almost complete, and then we'll get those off to BNSF, and then we'll see what they have to say on that. Sidewalk Summit, December, maybe January, just depending on how meetings fall out. I know there's some with the holidays between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and those middle December weeks get kind of busy, so we'll see where that falls out. I have no update on the Lola Shepherd project of MDT. Be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Quick couple questions for you on the school zone. Was there any discussion about wanting a 15-mile-an-hour zone posted soon behind Helena Middle School?
That was probably gonna be a interim fix, but also look at the larger issue of the traffic flow and the safety of dropping off the kids. So you will have some internal or interim fixes for certain schools that are seeing issues. And then we'll continue to work with the school district to try to get a long-term solution.
So is that affirmative that the 15-mile-an-hour speed zone will get posted on
where they make sense? Yes.
Okay, because with the traffic at even like football games or track meets at Vigilante Stadium, it's worth it there even outside of school hours. So, and then the Centennial Trail, what's the status on the feasibility study for the bridge over Henderson Street?
It's on hold until we get an actual easement, because we can't expend money on something that we don't have an easement on.
Even for the feasibility study?
Yep.
Because if those are ARPA funds, they have to be
They're not ARPA funds, they're general savings funds.
I thought those were ARPA funds from Commissioner Shurtleff.
So the ARPA funds were converted to general savings funds. And then those money that was left over is now general savings. So that's where that feasibility money came from, was the general savings fund. Or general savings from the general fund, excuse me. We don't have a general savings fund.
Okay. I mean, and so who decided to postpone the feasibility study?
That was a discussion with staff, because again, expenditure of city funds on something that we don't know if we're even going to get that easement or not. I mean, we're all hopeful, but it's been 5 or 6 years now that we're still working on that easement.
Okay. And then the Lola Shepherd, there's no update there, but has there been, I mean, is that complete street compliant, that project? Has there been any dialogue or interaction for
Yeah, that's why we gave MDT our comments that they can't just leave gaps between those sidewalks. If they're going to improve that section, they have to do something there to have for connectivity.
What about like boulevards and sidewalks and trees? Those are all complete street features. Is that all included in the project?
Well, that's that's the discussion we're having with them, that when they do work within the city, they need to follow city policies and practices, and not necessarily just MDT ways, because there's a reason why the city has, in this case, the complete streets policy. So we're still working with them. I know that they've come back and said that they can't do certain things because of the funding, but we're keeping on task that these features need to be installed, because it's not, you can't just put in something and just call it good and leave gaps between sidewalks or no pedestrian facilities at all.
No, I appreciate that. I'd even like to see trees along Centennial Trail. I mean, I think that would be complete street compliant. So, will there be more engagement with the public on that project?
I don't know. Like I said, I know that they're they're working on our comments. They're working with some adjacent property owners that they're, encroaching on, whether they're gonna buy some land or get some construction easements or what have you. I know that last I heard, they were working with some property owners in that respect.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Anybody else have any questions for David?
David, do you know what the time frame is for the Lola, what their plan is?
I don't know if everybody heard that, but Lucas asked for the time frame on the Lola Shepherd. I think I think it's still on schedule, but I don't know what the letting date for construction, but I think with some of the public comments and the comments from the city, that might change just because there's some significant issues that we have to work through.
But they're hoping to do it this summer, or is that?
I don't recall if it was on schedule for this next summer.
Any other questions for David? Seeing none, we'll move on to the health department report. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Sandell, Lewis and Clark Public Health. Good to virtually talk to everybody tonight. Can you give me sharing abilities?
Hang on just 2 seconds, Sarah.
So what I'm going to start with tonight is the report from the walk audit that we did at Centennial Trail and National and Argyle. So I'll share the results from that walk audit. That's where I'll start tonight. So I'll start. So it was on September 7th from 12:30 to 2. MTAC suggested we do a walk audit there, and we included as well some folks who lived in the area, as well as city personnel, and people from Ability Montana as well, to include that disability perspective as well. So had a little bit of a variety of people there. And so what we did is we went through, so we started at that spot around Euclid. I always forget where it turns Euclid to Lindale, but it was Euclid. Start there, and then we went down and we stopped a few different times, and we rated everything 1 to 10. And I think if you go through the report, you'll see at each stop we said what we scored it, the positive aspects, the needs improvement, and the recommendations that were given. And so we do have a few summary suggestions. So the summary suggestions are: create a protected multi-use path that would connect where Centennial ends to the future crossing in Montana. This would be on the east side of National, connect to the south side of Argyle, then safely it crosses Montana. And then the second suggestion was a build out on Centennial Trail so that you can really see when you're coming out of the trail where the cars are parked. It's kind of a hidden section right now. Adding in, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you check to see, because you're a panelist and you have all the permissions to share. Could you
It
double
still
check?
says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me keep going. I'll get.
Okay, and if not, everyone should have access to this, so just pull it up on your own, but if I can share, I will. And then the third one is just sidewalks, being able to have that protected zone, especially for our disability community, being able to have a safe protected walk. Curb cuts, again, being able to show where things end and where things start is really important. And then trees as well. So those were the big summary suggestions. Of course, at each stop, there's their own suggestions, but those were the biggest ones that the group really felt would make a difference in this section. We said that these would be provided to MTAC. The community members can always make recommendations on the My Helena app, and they can always make recommendations to MDT as well. So those are the big summary suggestions from the walk audit. Did anyone who attended that walk audit, did anyone want to jump in?
Now try, Sarah.
There we go. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll keep it on the summary suggestions, but if anyone wants to jump in with their thoughts.
Well, Sarah, is a great walk audit. They're always very informative, and it's good discussion there. David, I have a question for you. Did you ever do a debrief with MDT on why the crossings on Montana were not selected for the TA program?
We haven't got that scheduled yet, no.
Okay. And that's, I think one of the, why I bring that up is that this may be one of the reasons why it wasn't scored highly, is that it didn't have, you know, the protected crossing is important, but there's no connectivity to it, you know, so that's why, you know, the protected path is important, you know, is to link up the crossing on Montana to Centennial Trail. So.
Thanks for adding that. Absolutely. Anyone
Anybody
have
else?
any questions?
MTAC members, I'd be comfortable making a motion advising the commission on the first two recommendations there, you know, to create the multi-use path and then also the curb bulb outs on the west side of National. Do you have, MTAC members, do you have any thoughts on that?
David, do you know, assuming that a crossing does go through at Bozeman, where's the money for that coming from? Is it MDT money or?
No, those are city funds.
So that's going to be the city's money to pay for that.
For at least one of them.
Greg, Ann was here and she attended, so maybe public comment too, if she has anything to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ann, if you have any comments, the floor is yours.
Yeah, she said she didn't.
Okay, thank you. MTAC members, how do you feel about a motion? Or should I just, I can make one and then we can talk about it.
Well, Greg, my feelings would be let's table it since we've got to have to deal with this bylaws thing today, and there's only a couple people here. Maybe we could plan to talk about this at a future date.
No, that's a good comment. You know, this is something we don't have to rush. And I know the bylaws are on our agenda that has is time sensitive. So yeah, we can table this for future discussion for next month. So I'm comfortable with that. But just so you guys know, I'd also be comfortable making a motion to the commission advising the first two recommendations there, or whatever else anybody else wants. So we'll just add that for proposal for next month, future meetings.
Thanks, Greg. And then I also wanted to jump in because I know that the Rodney walk audit was also in my plate. Just to be transparent, we're a little short-staffed right now, and so it's kind of taken over on the things that I'm focusing on. But I also was wondering if we wanted to wait on walk audits for a little bit, get through the bylaws, figure out, you know, how walk audits fit appropriately with how we're making recommendations, when we're making recommendations. Of course, my goal is that we are making recommendations early in the process. So when community input is being like when they're just starting, I mean, I think that would be a great time to do a walk audit so that, you know, these can always be really thought of and part of the planning in the beginning. Not to say that they don't happen later, but I think that could be a really good, you know, recommendation to MTAC is that like as a policy option to that they're done earlier. And so I just want to like be thoughtful of the process of how MTAC is changing and forming and functioning, and make sure that walk audits fit well into however the next step is. So I wanted to get everyone's input on that, and if it's okay to push pause for a little bit.
So when you say push pause for a little bit, how much of a pause are you thinking? I
mean, I was thinking until MTAC has I mean, I don't know if it's just gonna be decided today with the bylaws, but I know that when Danae spoke, I think it was 2 meetings ago or so, a month ago, that this was like phase 1 of the boards kind of getting some new direction. So maybe waiting for that phase 2 of when making sure that like we know the direction and we know where it's going and we know what the commission's gonna listen to and be receptive to. So that was kind of my goal, not knowing that timeline.
Yeah, David, I don't know if there's a phase 2. I think the bylaws is, once we, hopefully approve it here tonight, it's kind of done for a while. David, do you have any other input on that?
I think there's another boards meeting coming up for some discussion. And I know the bylaws are, like Sarah said, one of the first things that we wanted to get done, or the city wanted to get done. And I think there's some follow-up housekeeping items that still need to be addressed. Specifically like boards that are that may be meeting that may not have a resolution to meet. So authorizing them or renewing them, whatever the correct term is now. Housekeeping stuff like that. I can get a more detailed schedule and send that out. And I can talk to Danae tomorrow and see, and she can give me a rundown. Then I can just send that out to everyone so that it doesn't have to wait until next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Sarah, I do think those 2 walk audits are definitely warranted. And I don't see how anything in our bylaws would prohibit us from doing them or providing, any recommendations to the commission. I don't.
In that case, absolutely. I feel like if someone else wants to lead it in the meantime, I do think a great way to get feedback. If you guys are wanting to look at that section, I don't think I'd be able to do it in the future though, and I don't want you guys waiting on me then in that case.
Okay. David, is there anybody at the city that's trained in walk audits?
I don't think so at this time.
Because Sarah, didn't you do some online training for the walk audits?
We brought a facilitator. It was Mark Fenton came in, so we brought a facilitator. It was about 45 years ago, and there was a good 30 people who attended the facilitator training. I do think though that anyone who has been attending them kind of knows the structure at this point. Not to say that it wouldn't be great to have a facilitator training again. That would be amazing. So if anyone finds good money for that, I would love to bring in a facilitator again for that. I don't want you guys all having to, wait on me. That feels not sustainable. But I think, yeah, so if anyone who's been attending wants to lead it, I could also look at that list from a few years back and see if there's anyone on there who might be interested. Or I'm happy if we're happy to wait. I just don't want you guys to wait on me. That's the issue. So if you're happy to wait, then I'm happy to lead it in a little bit to you all.
Sarah, how long were you thinking?
Realistically, later November, and then we get into situations where, so I used to, if you talked to me 5 years ago, I would always say, bad weather's a good time to do a walk audit because it shows the people who are living, working, playing in these environments have to deal with. But the more I've worked with the disability community, they're kind of changing that format, saying that, yeah, it's good to show, but also we can't be there then. So it's kind of that double-edged sword, and it's actually not great. So I'd be happy to try for late November, just knowing though that we might miss perspective if the weather's really crummy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think late November is reasonable. And
I
that,
do as well, Greg. That sounds fine with me.
yeah. And David, I don't, would, maybe Darren Ramos could be trained in walk audits or something, if Sarah's getting other obligations. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, we'd have to keep track of our workload as well. Not to say that we can't do it. It's just, typically if you add something, something has to drop off or something like that. So, but we could double check.
And Greg, maybe that's something that in the spring MTAC does want to host a walk audit facilitator training or something. I know that MTAC doesn't have money, so maybe we can do like our version of it. I can talk to the people who have put it on before and see if we can just do it ourselves, and try to get volunteers. I mean, maybe that's something that we could do as a group in the spring.
Okay.
So Greg, I do have to run as I emailed you. If there's any other questions, please email me. Mark Young is online, but he's only online to make sure that the recording gets stopped and starting downloading. So if there's any questions, just get them together and email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. A few staff members are out, or not out this week, but it'll be in and out because of the Montana League of Cities and Towns Conference is starts tomorrow through Thursday and Friday.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thanks. Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay. Well, Sarah, if you have time to do a walk audit in late November, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll put it on my schedule and I'll get it booked even if it's that much later.
All right. Great. Thanks. We'll move on now to the report to the Helena Police Department. Lieutenant Zander, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I really don't have anything prepared. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Do you have any stats or even just any thoughts on the school zone enforcement? I noticed last week I saw flashing lights on California by the school zone by Smith schools in the morning, so I just assumed it was somebody, a speed zone enforcement there. So yeah, do you have any feedback?
I don't have any stats. We have, obviously sent out emails and notifications, and with the school resource officers, they are notified that they need to be doing traffic in those school zones. One change we have made with the school resource officers is we assigned a supervisor. So we have a corporal who is now one of the school resource officers, and he is in charge of, the group of them. And so with him in there, it's nice to be able to have, somebody that's right in the mix of all the school happenings to be able to, keep tabs on what they're doing and, some of the things they're dealing with, and to ensure that they are doing traffic when time permits.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Zander?
Greg, yes, if you don't mind. Jason, I've always been a little bit curious, I guess, if, and with the changes, I guess, being planned for this board, are I curious, I guess, as to, what is the city asking HPD to attend these meetings, or is it HPD wants to attend? Are you guys, and would you rather not have to be here, or would you, if we're reorganizing the board, would you just as soon not be a part of it, or are you happy to be a part of it? I just kind of was, maybe this isn't the right time to ask that, but just kind of curious what your take on it is.
I guess a little bit of all of the above, I guess, if you will. I think the city would like us to be at some of these meetings. I know Chief Petty has, assigned people to different meetings, and part of those reasons are as questions come up and things need to be checked into, instead of, I guess we've been at meetings where maybe this comes across wrong, but sometimes all of a sudden the fingers are getting pointed at the police department's not doing this, police department's not doing that. And we're not there to explain maybe why something is being done a certain way. A prime example is some of the dealings that we've been dealing with the transient issues in the downtown area. There's a ninth district court ruling that kind of prohibits us from stopping some of that. And, we get accused of not doing anything and not caring and everything else, when in fact, our directive based off a court ruling is that we can't do a lot about it. So, and that's just one example that I have right off the top of my head, of the reasons why we do come to this stuff, because a lot of the times we can, intercept some ill feelings towards the police department, or some negativity that is pointed our way, and by just simply being there and being able to explain things and be a part of the process. As far as some of the decisions that are made with different streets, and the walk audits and the bulb outs and the discussions there, that's really not the police department's place to chime in, unless there's a law or something like that we need to help explain. We enforce the laws no matter what the city decides to do with the streets and how they do it. Obviously, we have some concerns, and if there's a safety issue that pops up, we're going to voice our opinions on that. But this group is always been pretty good on, safety and concerns there. So I don't know that that's, a big concern for us. But, it's important for us that we're here to represent and help guide people towards, to laws or ordinances or things like that, to help explain why we do what we do.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Certainly.
Anybody else have any questions for Lieutenant Zander? Lieutenant Zander, I do have a couple things. We on our agenda for future agendas, we've had on here kind of standing item, the stop sign as yield sign for bicyclists, modeled after the Idaho stop law. And then 20 miles per hour speed zone, speed limit in the city, Helen, unless posted otherwise. From your, I think I'd like to get, a city attorney's opinion on some of those topics, but from a law enforcement, I'd like to hear your thoughts on those two issues.
Well, they're both in statute, state statute. So I don't think a city ordinance can supersede a state statute. They can, we do have some city statute or city ordinances that, are in tandem and basically the same thing as the city or as the state statute, but you can't, make a law lesser or more, is my understanding with a city ordinance. So the state says all bicycles have to stop at stop signs. And that's how we enforce that. And the same thing with the speed limits are 25, and that's statewide unless otherwise posted.
So we'd have to change all the speed signs in Helena to 20 miles per hour.
No, you'd have to go to legislation. Well, yes, you would have, if it's posted, it can be 20.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yes,
That's what
I stand corrected.
Okay.
Yes, if the city opted to make them all 20-mile-an-hour speed zones, they would have to post signs there. That is correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right, we'll move on. Agenda item D, the new MTAC bylaws. So Danae was at our first September meeting and kind of gave us the rundown. Everybody's had the bylaws to kind of look over them, kind of open it up for any general discussion before I know Danae they'd like to have them on a commission agenda this month, end of this month, to adopt the bylaws. So this is our chance to provide any recommendations to the bylaws. So I've got some comments, but I'll just open it up to MTAC members for discussion.
Greg, this is Lucas. I have quite a bit to say about it. I don't know if I don't want to monopolize the whole meeting either, though. So if someone else wants to go first and give their thoughts, or I can just kind of go through it.
Lucas, I had some general thoughts, but I think, I mean, my perspective is you should feel free to weigh in. I'll probably have similar things.
So maybe I have some misunderstanding of how this was presented to us, but my understanding of where this stands is that, you know, we are supposed to take this or leave it. If we don't vote and adopt these bylaws, MTAC will no longer exist after October 31st. Maybe I misunderstood that. I mean, hopefully so. And in some ways, I think that is what seemed to, gave me a really bad taste about the way this process was handled by the city, and in part because they didn't get it to us prior to the meeting when they supposedly were coming to discuss it with us. So we didn't really have any opportunity to discuss it with them. And then now we're presented with this. I have some nitpicks with it. I have some, I think, more substantive disagreements with it, but I'm not sure that we actually have the option to amend it and then pass it. I think that so, I mean, I guess if anyone else has any thoughts on that, or the best way to sort of approach that, I guess my thinking was we're required to pass it unless we want to protest and just decline. And then after we pass it, maybe we can submit some suggested changes and ask the city to let us change it, I guess. I mean, obviously that's assuming that MTAC wants to make any changes with it. Like I say, personally, I have some nitpicks with it and some bigger issues with it. So I'll just kind of go through it. In the first part, I don't really, Article 1, Article 2, I don't really have any comments of it. I will notice that quorum is defined as the majority of the number of seats established. That's 4. You could just say 4, but regardless, I mean, that seems reasonable. Section 2, I think, kind of gets to me at the heart of it a little bit. I went back and pulled up the original resolution, which clearly states that the purpose of MTAC is to advocate for non-motorized transportation in the city. It seems like that this is, well, for one thing, to me, it's unclear and vague what is meant by this sentence: the board shall not engage in advocacy for the city or county. I think that what they're trying to say is that we're not supposed to speak for the city. Fair enough, I think, to an extent. But I think that we are supposed to advocate for non-motorized transportation with the city. And so I guess that, in some ways, the biggest issue I have with this is, going back to the original, resolution, which had established MTAC. It seems that that council or that commission had a vision for MTAC that is a lot more than just, file your complaints in the complaint box and we will look at it if we decide that it's worthy of looking at it. The duties included, recommending priorities in the plan, advocating for non-motorized facilities, developing, supporting, sponsoring educational programs, advocating for funding in the city budget, looking for other funding sources, reviewing and advising on grant applications, advising on traffic calming measures, developing a map, and other duties assigned by the commission. Also, there's language in here that says that the MTAC was supposed to contribute in an advisory capacity regarding all aspects of the city's planning processes. And I think so. I guess in the big picture, I mean, it seems like in some ways, this is this is coming from the staff level at the city. Staff, wants a clear direction on who they're supposed to answer to. They don't, having input from MTAC just complicates things. And so, it's preferable that they can just do their own thing and don't have to listen to anyone else unless the city commission orders them different. And so, this, it does seem to me that this is a reorganization and sort of a pulling back of what MTAC was meant to be. I'm not sure that it ever had truly fulfilled what it was kind of envisioned to be more of a just, file your complaint with the city commission, and if they think it's important, they'll do something about it. And maybe that's all it ever was really allowed to be, and they were kind of overreaching in what they had intended to create, or what it seemed like the original establishing resolution seemed like it was trying to create. But I don't know if we necessarily have to just agree with that and say, well, fine, yes, we don't want to have any involvement with, all aspects of the planning. We'll just make our recommendations and then sit down. Maybe we should be advocating for our, ability to do more. So to me, that's kind of the big question. In terms of, just briefly going through, the rest of it, everything under Article 4, I don't really have any concerns about. Article 5, there's a confusing sentence in here that says, the option to attend via video and audio platforms may be given with prior notice to the chair. To me, that's really unclear. I think what they're trying to say is that the board members need to give notice to the chair to be allowed to attend via Zoom, but to me, just a nitpick, I guess, seems poorly written and hard to understand what they're even attempting to say there. Section 2, open meetings. Under Part C, it says, all board meetings will be conducted using Mason's rules of order. I tried to look that up. I don't think there's any such thing as Mason's rules of order. There's Robert's rules of order. There's Mason's legislative rules, or something. It's titled something different than that. It's a $200, 700-page book of parliamentary procedure rules. I don't think we need that. I would, and I don't think we need to have that be. If you do need that, it doesn't need to be part of the bylaws necessarily, that to follow that. Section 2, Part E says board meeting is not official unless authorized by the majority of the board at a meeting. Just a nitpick, but that should be in Section 1. It doesn't belong in Section 2 there. Section 3 says any citizen may comment or provide testimony. That's vague, and citizen is not defined. We've had situations where people who weren't citizens of Helena wanted to make a comment. I think perhaps our state laws require that any person be allowed to make a comment, whether they're a citizen of Helena or not. So it's not clear if it's supposed to be a citizen of a Helena or a citizen of Montana. And obviously we've had situations where the developer wanted to make a comment, and they're not a citizen or anything, but I think they probably have a right to make a comment too. So I don't care for that section. Section 4, I guess that's fine. Section 5, again, agendas. Again, I think that's well, this, again, I kind of have an issue with the level of details that's involved here. I promise I won't go on all night with this, but I'll back up, I guess. Section 1, I missed. I have an issue with Section 1, Part A. I think it's bad practice to list the date, time, and room number of the meeting in the bylaws. Only way to change the bylaws is, with permission of the city commission. So, in other words, according to these rules, you can't even change the room or cancel or skip or change the time of a meeting. The previous resolution, authorizing MTAC said 8 meetings, at least 8 meetings a year. This way this law is made, and you can't even skip 1 meeting a year, and it's 12 meetings a year, which I think is overkill. And so, going back to section 4, or excuse me, section 5. Again, I'm, a little bit confused about this where, it says any person wishing to speak a second time. I don't think that includes the board members, but it's unclear. I don't think that it's necessary to have, this level of detail in a, what is, essentially should be, the constitution of MTAC. And, if we, you could just generally say, and, the chairman will be in charge of the meeting and will set, rules and allow public comment as required by law. Section 7, I think this is kind of my final note on it. The decisions must be approved by a majority of the board. I think normally it's been our practice that, the majority of the people attending the meeting passed a vote, but I think that would be a change. I guess, the one other comment in terms of, the date, time, and location of the meeting, I've never been a huge fan of 5:15 every Tuesday, in part because it conflicts with the zoning meeting, which is at the exact same time every Tuesday. Probably just more of a me problem, but I mean, I can see situations where people would like to attend both and can't. And, I think that should be something that is up to the board, to discuss that maybe with the approval of staff of when and where they're going to have their meeting.
Thanks, Lucas, for your thorough review. I don't disagree with any of your sentiments. I'll just, generally speaking, I think you hit the nail on the head. My first reaction was I was focusing on the duties, powers and duties, section 2 there, and this is under Article 3. And I agree. The question that remains for me is in section 2 and section B. There's B as in boy. It recognizes the city resolution, the founding resolution, and says pursuant to. So I think the question is that still, we have that document and we have the bylaws, and the bylaws are, as you pointed out, a little more generic and watered down. So, direction from city staff as to, which one, not which one controls, but which one do they want us to go off on our duties. And that to me would be what I'd ask for city and staff. As far as procedure goes, I think you're correct. I mean, we could say, no, we're going to walk away from these and we'll come back to the next meeting and we'll produce an amended version how we see it and take public comment and go from there. But to your point on the timeline, I don't know if that really works. And so I think a lot of your suggestions, even as you put them, the nitpicky ones, make a lot of sense for clarity, not just for us, but for future MTAC members. So I'm speaking obviously personally, I would support you. I don't know if redlining is the best way to say it, but in a future date doing that, so we could put those issues in front of the commission for the review and they could say yes or no. But as far as procedure as of tonight, I would say you're right. I think it's either take this version or don't. So and given that I'm although there's some issues, I'd be fine with accepting this and then trying to amend it with some of the suggestions that you put forth. So I'll stop there.
Joel, do you have any comments?
I think I overall agree with Lucas's comments. I think the two thoughts that I have is, I guess I didn't read the city resolution 19549. I don't have that in front of me. but are there any things in here that are in direct conflict with that resolution, or do they just not, perfectly jive? I guess my idea or thought was always that we were solely advisory, and so there's nothing in the section 2 that seems egregious to me. We don't really have like the power or the authority to, I don't know, ask for more. I think this is, the framework they want us to work in. And so, like has been said, I think we just kind of have to accept this. And again, I don't know if there's anything in here that is actually in direct conflict with that city resolution, or if, one's just more specific than the other. As far as the other comments about specific, meeting time and date, that is pretty odd. So yeah, if we can make some of those small edits, I would suggest doing that. I also wonder if this document is just kind of a plug and play that they sent to all advisory committees with, the specifics of, things like meeting time and date every month changed. And so maybe they are expecting a little bit more or editing or tailoring for each advisory council. But yeah, I guess I'm not totally sure about that. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, and I think my take on this is, I think they are trying to use this bylaws as a template for all their advisory boards, just for some consistency. I didn't, it kind of sounds like they want to approve it here at the end of October. But if we have this many comments, obviously it's just not fair to us to try and give a rubber stamp on this. I didn't get the impression that MTAC would dissolve if they didn't approve this. It's just kind of a housekeeping item, so I fully believe that. I guess I didn't get any thoughts that MTAC wouldn't survive, in the future. I was mainly worried that, that with this bylaws, they would try and restrict our role and our scope. So when we get into section 2 under powers and duties, pursuant to city resolution, our establishing resolution, that was very broad authority. And here I read this where it basically defers back to the original resolution. So we still have a very broad authority, even though, we are just an advisory body to the commission, and ultimately it's up to the commission whether they take our advice. So, in the future, MTAC is only going to be successful with a commission that wants to have a successful MTAC. So in the past, Centennial Trail, that came out of MTAC, but at the time the commission was all on board and supported it. So in the future, just know that like Eric Fever was going to be a very strong advocate for non-motorized transportation, and how you vote matters, and how we vote for a city commissioner in the future is going to be directly related on how successful we are at MTAC. So we are just a small portion of the role, but I enjoy our role. But ultimately it comes down to the city commission, taking our advice and going with it. So when I read through this, there's a lot of procedure stuff in there. As Lucas pointed out, it some of it's specific, may not be needed, but if they're trying to apply it to every board, I don't have a lot of concern over it. Said my main thing is I just didn't want these bylaws to, restrict our scope. And when I read it says pursuant to city resolution, it defers back to our establishing resolution, which is very broad, so I'm comfortable with that. the other thing that one specific thing I had was that the agenda needed to be posted 7 days in advance. And, public meeting laws is 2 days in advance, so I guess I'm not opposed to 7 days. It comes up fast. I just don't know if that 7 days is going to be an excuse to cancel our meetings like we saw in our July meetings, we cancel our meetings and stifle advocacy, community engagement over technicalities, so, I think to be consistent with public meeting laws, we should be expected to post our agendas 2 days in advance. So. And with this much discussion, my thought, obviously is it's just not reasonable to have a motion to approve the bylaws at this time. Probably the best thing to do is, Lucas, if you want to provide a revised copy, and we could talk about it at our next meeting, or at least send them to Danae and see if, she's willing to pump the brakes
Well,
on things.
sorry, Greg, can I?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So I think we need to be careful about that. We need to look at the resolution that was sent to us by David from our current commission. To respond, I guess, to some of your questions, Kevin, I think there is some, conflicts between where we're currently at and what, our original resolution was, and one of which is, the city commission and the HCC people have been, that was in that resolution. Now they're taken off. The other one that does concern me quite a bit is, the original resolution said, that we, MTAC, could work with the county and other adjoining land areas. And so, it somewhat makes me concerned of whether, this ends up being a reason to say, well, Sarah, Lewis and Clark County Public Health, you can't sit in on, interface directly with these meetings. That has to all go through the commission, and so I do feel like it is, a pulling back of, what, what we were, at least what they envisioned when they initially formed this versus, what they want it to be now, which is, just more strictly advice only to the commission. And that, does limit what you can do, I think. But, maybe the better part of valor is, to survive to fight another day so that the commission continues to exist. And then maybe, the MTAC continues to exist. And then maybe, some future commission wants to, give it some more power or authority to do a little bit more, than maybe that, it'll be there and they can. This current directive that we got from the commission says, the commission hereby directs all, these general advisory boards, including us, to implement these changes and adopt the template bylaws. A city board or a committee may propose additional provisions specific to the body, so long as additional provisions do not conflict with the template bylaws. All additional provisions proposed by the board or committee must be reviewed by the city clerk and attorney and approved by the city commission. All procedural changes must be implemented and the template bylaws adopted no later than October 31st. So, I'm concerned that, they didn't give us enough time to do that, to make any such changes. They aren't going to review them and get back to us by October 31st. So, I think I mean, I don't think that this, that the city would just say, well, you lapsed on a technicality, you didn't approve this. You lapsed and you can no longer meet, and the board is dissolved. But also I think I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've seen some of that, with the city canceling our meetings and stuff, to where, it does seem like hostility coming from the staff side. So, I don't want to take that chance either. I kind of think we need to, approve these, and then, if we want to make changes, ask for changes.
And I'd agree with, just like I said in my comment, I'd agree procedurally that's the best course in my opinion.
So I always like to stay ahead of things. If we have a motion, to adopt the bylaws, subject to future revisions, just so they know that, we do want some things changed.
Yeah, and I guess, section 6 has a procedure to change them, as it should.
Right.
Needs to be reviewed by staff and approved by the commission. And I mean, I've got some proposed changes in terms of, I think we could, I mean, it's on our agenda for today. We could adopt this and then go through and, make some amendments and ask for some amendments. I think we could do that today. Which wouldn't, stop us from asking for more amendments in the future. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get them. Seems like, I pointed out that issue to Danae and the city attorney, off outside of the group here, and the response that I had got from them was, MSU Local Government Center knows best. Which,
right, yeah, I hear you, Lucas. I guess my thought is these go, if we approve these and then we take a red line version and post it with our agenda for next month and come right back with those per section 6, because you already adopted these, we're following the procedure there, and everyone, including members who aren't here tonight, can look at those, and we can have that discussion next month, is my perspective, because I don't know the position we'd be putting in is saying we're not going to adopt the template. We're going to offer you a middle ground. But I just think adopting these and then adhering to the procedure to amend feels cleanest to me. That's what I'll offer there.
Well, yeah, and I guess maybe you're correct in terms of we shouldn't do what I'm accusing them of doing, and blindside them with, well, we're making these changes, and not give them notice that we want to make these changes, that where they have time, they being Danae and the city attorney, I guess, whoever came up with this, to review our changes and come to our meeting if they want to argue against them.
And that's my thought. It's just transparency, and you can see, a red line version could be offered there for discussion, and yeah, then we'd be following the procedures set forth in the bylaws template itself. So that's what I'd suggest.
We adopt them under protest.
I agree with that. I think adopting them this month before their October 31st deadline, and then with the heads up that we would like some specific changes made would be good.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
Anne, you have any public comment?
Oh,
before
thank
we
you.
Go on.
Thank you. I actually do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree with everything that all of you have said. I was, as a complete newcomer, shocked. I wanted to know the backstory because this seems like such a weird thing. So my question for all of you is, have any of you talked to the members of the other committees to see if they have other concerns? Because if indeed, I think you should approve it tonight. And then maybe if they have similar concerns, it would be more powerful going to staff and commission if you can agree on some of the changes, the amendments that you want.
That's a great point, and I know I have not personally.
Yeah, I think the first one that they did was the Public Art Committee. And I know one of the members on there, I could reach out to her, but I know that committee, it's just they are not as active, I guess, to say, as like MTAC is right now. So I think the Citizens Conservation Board will probably have some more engagement with it in the future as well. So no, that is a very good point, Anne. And I could follow up on that with some other members too.
Yeah, they listed them here. Helena Public Art Committee, Helena Open Lands Management Advisory Committee, Golf Advisory Board, Citizens Conservation Board, and us. I might know somebody on the Open Lands Committee.
And do you have any further comments?
No. Thanks. Well, actually, I do have one more. I was concerned in section 2 under conflict of interest. They list not only financial conflict of interest, but personal conflict of interest, and don't define it. And I don't want you to discuss this tonight, but just if you could just put that in with your mix of concerns. It's one that I have.
That's a good note, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all have personal interest in anything we're talking about. So
Yeah, well,
I think that's why you're here.
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
well, I think there are some definitions in the law, and maybe that's just, we need that training more, but so I think Kevin's proposal is the right way to handle it, and I would move to adopt the bylaws proposed by the city.
I'll second that.
Okay. So yeah, I got 636 motion by Lucas to adopt the bylaws as proposed by the city. Second by Kevin. Any other further discussion, comments, or amendments? Do you guys think it's worth having any amendment in there to know that our amendments will be forthcoming? Or should we just leave it as we adopt the bylaws and just go through the process?
Yeah, we have to room at 7. We usually come in at 6:30.
Okay, it will be done soon. Sorry, Greg, they're trying to get into our room early.
Okay.
I guess I don't think we need to. My idea would be, Greg, I'll send you a red line of proposed changes, and then you could post that with next month's agenda, and we can go through it line by those changes line by line and
Sure.
see if we agree with all of them or what.
Yeah, and that's my thought as well, because then we have in place the bylaws, which spells out the procedure. So I think that's a good idea. Keeps it clean.
Does anyone else have any specific concerns that I didn't mention? That we didn't mention?
No, not from my end, Lucas. I think you covered it really well. I do think Ann's public comment point there. That's a good one to add to the list. So
No, I'm good. I appreciate Lucas going through it with a fine tooth comb. Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. And I'm gonna, I think since David left, we can probably just table this, but I still want further discussion on complete streets. You know, I did follow up with the city public information officer, and we do have an adopted communications plan, which basically we have the complete street policy, we've got the communication procedure. So it seems like all the, you know, the tasks are there to implement the complete street policy. So, you know, why we didn't get bulb outs on certain intersections on 11th, you know, why we're not going to do them on 6 is, you know, doesn't follow the complete street policy, and it doesn't follow the communications plan. So that's further discussion I want to have when David is back. So we'll just keep this on for next month. And also in the budget, you know, there's budget goals, and complete street implementation is one of the budget goals. So I'll just include that for next month again, when David is available. Anybody else have any comments on agenda item E, the complete street implementation expectation?
Nope. Thanks, Craig.
No, and then the middle school speed zone, we talked about that a little bit, you know, interim fix. I think 15-mile-an-hour zone is definitely warranted. They're on Idaho behind Helena Middle School, but we'll keep that on for next month also, to see where that goes. You know, the monthly progress report, Dave was going to follow up with that. So obviously he's not here, so we'll defer that for next month also. And then I've got on here the downtown multimodal plan recommendations. So that was, the plan was adopted by the city. So there are several, you know, potential improvements, recommendations there. And I don't know if you guys would, you know, I would like to have a motion, you know, with our recommendations of those improvements, so the city can budget for those improvements. So I just want to open it up for MTAC members for any discussion. Have you guys looked at the recommendations and be prepared to make a motion or anything at all?
Greg, can you clarify, I guess, where that stands? I thought it was a draft plan that I didn't think it was final yet.
It was on a consent agenda 1 or 2 meetings ago with the city commission. So it was approved.
Well,
Table, and we can go ahead and table this for next month when people are more prepared. I would like to give a formal recommendation, to the city commission that, I'd like to see the Cruise Avenue projects, budgeted, as recommended by the downtown multimodal plan. So
Yeah, Greg, and I apologize. I was with Lucas on this. I thought it was still in draft phase, so I will review and be prepared in November.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's best. Nothing's time sensitive on it. But my thought is if we're going to spend the money on a plan, we need projects, tangible projects that come out of it. So I do think we want to get, a formal recommendation of what transportation improvements we would like to see.
Agreed. Thanks for putting on there, Greg.
Okay. Moving on, member communications, proposals for future agendas. I've just got a kind of a standing list of things here. I'll add the National and Argyle for next month. And then the CIP, I'll have to wait for David to come back next month so we can to get a copy of the Transportation Department CIP. Anybody else have anything you want to add, for proposals or any topics we want to, talk about in the future?
so I'd like to see some kind of topic that was just a bit more broad, you know, long-term goals or, issues, member discussion of, transportation problems. I don't know how to word it exactly, but something that would give us the opportunity to, have a standing agenda item to just, discuss the general state of Helena transportation and what our goals are. I don't know. I also think it would be worth discussing a little bit broader context of the middle school there. And specifically the sidewalks around there, I think, are kind of ridiculous how they stop half a block away from the school, and then there's good sidewalk all the way halfway up, all the way up Davis Street, but it stops 1 block from the school. I hate to say it, but maybe we should take off the stop sign and 20 mile per hour if those are just non-starters. We don't need to be worrying about it anymore.
Lucas, a thought on that. I mean, there's discussion from the city there or from the police department on the legalities there. Do we, underneath our revised structure, or again, structure is the wrong word, just bylaws and operating plan here, do we have the authority to request a legal opinion from the city attorney?
So it does say that you can ask for, by making a recommendation to the commission, ask for help from the attorney. So I think we can. So maybe it is worth keeping on there if that's something we want to ask, but I don't know. It seemed like maybe we can just look up the statute and see if that statute is on the books. Maybe it is what it is.
Yeah, and I would like to ask for the city's attorney opinion on those items. The stop sign is a yield sign for bicyclists. That might be a harder one, bigger hurdle. The 20 miles an hour speed limit, we could post, or maybe even citizens could go out there and change the 5 to a 0 and all the signs would be 20 miles per hour. So I think it's worth it. I wouldn't be opposed to at least getting the city attorney's opinion on those 2 items. And like I said, the stop sign is yield sign for bicyclists. I'm not an attorney, but if it's hard enough to get things done in the city of Helena, I don't think I want to carry that to the legislature. So even though it has merit, so.
Yeah, my thought on that is just, we can have, I guess, quote unquote, legal thoughts or opinions from folks on here who could do that, but if we want some sort of finality, that seems like, and direction for future MTech meetings and city planning, et cetera, that's would be nice to have on hand for this group going forward. So
Okay. Anything else for future agendas? Moving on, let's see the meetings of interest announcements. So I did check with the community development department. The 6th Ward neighborhood plan, they've had some delays, but it still is in progress. They hope to have a draft out this fall sometime. So I'll just keep everybody posted on that. So we can provide any recommendations or comments on that for non-motorized. And then I did share, we had the walk audit the walk to school day. And I shared with everybody what the cursory stats at Jefferson School were. Let's see if I can find them up. But 8 students came by bus, 49 by car, 152 walked to school, and 22 students biked to school. And I know that's a smaller sample size because there's more kids than that in school, but it does show you that people are willing to walk to school, and if we provide good infrastructure, I think more people would walk to school. So, I mean, those are good numbers to see.
Hey, Greg, I
makes
also
us-
helped with the Hawthorne one. Sorry to interrupt. And it was really, really great to see. I don't have any kids there. I was helping a coworker, and they had like 80% of Hawthorne walk to or bike to school that day too. So I just thought that was really cool. And they made a whole celebration of it and a challenge with the Bozeman school that's also called Hawthorne. So I think that's something that would be really cool to help support through MTech.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. We had a big walking school bus. People had fun. The news station was at Jefferson with the communications director with the school district, but I haven't seen the news clip yet. I just checked the website today, and I still haven't seen it posted. So when I do get that, I'll send it along. But kids were standing in line waiting to get interviewed. So it was fun to see. So walking is public health, and it makes our community better. So the stuff we do here matters. So might be frustrating or harder than it should be, but it's all important. So, and the future is going to thank us. So if we can make it easier to walk to school. So anybody else have any public, any meetings of interest, announcements that want members to be aware of?
I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but Anne had applied, and I think the city council met and she didn't get on the agenda, I guess. So is there some way that we can push it to make sure that her application gets on the next agenda? And then is there anyone else that anyone knows that might be interested?
No, and I did, when Danae was at the meeting, she did acknowledge that she'd received Anne's application. Usually it takes, a month or two, I'd say. So I could check in with Danae to see when it may.
A reminder.
Well,
yeah.
Can I speak? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
I got an email from Danae today, a week after I asked the question on the website, is like, what should I be doing? And she said it's on hold for reorganization or the commission to be reviewing boards or something. And they let me know.
Okay,
I applied after, only a couple days after your August meeting.
So phase 2 of the whatever is happening.
yeah. I mean, I fully expect Ann will get appointed to the board. Obviously, Ann, we certainly appreciate your input. So please feel free to attend our meetings as a member of the public until you do get appointed. You know, hopefully after they adopt our bylaws, then they'll appoint you. So.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you didn't reject the bylaws and possibly put the committee at risk. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm just learning more because this is more confusing, more complicated than I would have expected. So I'm in no hurry to get on your board because I don't have to make any decisions yet. I just get to listen.
Great. So I guess Ann, well, there's no other there for public comment. So our next meeting, November 14th. So the preference is to meet in person, but obviously Zoom is an option also. So if you can meet in person, it was actually great to see you know, Joel and Luke and Kevin at the meeting, because I think you guys joined on during COVID where everything was in a Zoom world. So it's nice to see people in person, and obviously walk or bike to the city county building. If anybody has anything else, please speak up. If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn because it is almost 7 o'clock.
Well, the other issue with being stuck in the room, you know, there's a herd of people outside waiting to sit down in here and they're in here at 7. So we've got a hard out on this room. Maybe that's a good thing for us.
Yeah, I mean, a 2-hour meeting. I know we've had some really long ones with the West Side Woods, but you know, I think a 2-hour meeting is good to be effective and not prolong it. And if we need to have further discussion, we can table things for future meetings. So. And I assume that our staff liaison will address the scheduling that if there needs to be any changes to give us the time that we need. So.
Greg, are you entertaining a motion to adjourn?
I am, yes.
I move to adjourn.
All right, 6:56, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.